Hey, everybody. It is December 7th, or excuse me, 8th. Goodness, I'm losing a day. It's terrible. December 8th. Yep, all day. And here we are with Cascadia. It's me and Christina Evans, our wonderful business development manager, and yours truly, the seller performance guru of Cascadia seller stuffs. And unfortunately, it's just us tonight. I'm sorry, but we have a few things to talk about. And before I get started, Christina, is there anything you want to say? Oh, and Emily has joined us. Yay!
Hi, Emily.
Wow, I'm really bright.
Yes, you are, but it's lovely and it's totally fine. We are officially live, and I did get it working, so yay. But I was just asking Christina if she had anything she wanted to share before we started talking about our previously determined agenda. But I think we lost her, so I guess we'll just go to our agenda. We are doing so well tonight.
I know. Well, these things happen.
They happen. I know. But we're doing
I've actually got my living room now right by my router because I can't tell what the problem is with my internet. So I moved upstairs to a less picturesque location.
But that's okay.
I'm right by my router, so I'm hoping my internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, goodness. Well, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what we had discussed? You had some stuff that you wanted to hit on about detail pages and EMC.
In terms of A+ detail pages, enhanced marketing content versus your detail page. They're actually two completely different things, and I'm noticing that I'm doing a lot of work for enhancing the marketing content on detail pages that aren't all that awesome to begin with. So I thought it would be important to mention that these are actually two separate things, and that
Ruby has a lot to say about those.
Someone just walked in upstairs. See, it's a fun night. Things are going well. So anyway, what I was saying is that you create your detail page. You just put your listing up. Anyone can do that. It's just a detail page. You don't have to be part of Vendor Express. You don't have to do any of that. You have your basic detail page. Now let's say you want to move to Vendor Express and enhance your detail pages, enhance your marketing content. What that's going to do is bring about very awesome content for you sort of below the fold, for lack of a better way to put it. So if your detail page starts out not having very good photos and not having very good bullet points up top, then it's not going to draw anyone down below where all the really cool HTML is and all your comparison charts and all your other information about your product is. So it's very important if you do decide to move forward with enhanced marketing content, which we think that's the best way to get eyes on your product, then it's very important to have a very good detail page before you ever do the enhanced marketing content. If your detail page is no good, no one's going to look at your enhanced marketing content, is basically the moral of that story.
Got it.
Yeah. So I've just been seeing a lot of that where I go in and start trying to, make this product more marketable to people. And then it turns out that the entire detail page needs to be rewritten or no one's going to look at it anyway. So I thought that would be a good thing to bring up.
No.
Emily, Christina here. I know you can't see me, but I wanted to ask. Maybe you mentioned it before my computer booted me off, but we've gotten several questions recently about Vendor Express, and I think my understanding is the Vendor Express program is we recommend just signing up for it so that it opens up the enhanced content, but they don't actually have to partake in the Vendor Express program, right?
All true. Yeah, you don't actually have to participate in the program. The deal right now is that you sign up for Vendor Express, which is basically a program in which you, in a way, sort of partner with Amazon and you become a supplier for them. The idea being that they can promote your product better than perhaps you can. So Vendor Express is definitely a good program to get started in, but for a lot of people, it doesn't necessarily work. But the enhanced marketing content that comes with it does work very well. So it's not that you can't participate or do anything else with that program. It's just that sometimes we do suggest people just use the enhanced marketing content and see what that does for you. And then if it does good things, then maybe you do want to move forward and participate in the whole program, but you don't necessarily have to the way the terms are now.
Right. And if your margins don't work for being a supplier with Amazon, that's something to consider, which I think we talked about in the last webinar. And Emily, there's a question that's come in that I think kind of dovetails on what you were talking about. And it says, how much benefit do you believe there is in building back links to an Amazon detail page through strategies like press releases? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that there's a lot of benefit to it. I mean, anything that you can link to your detail pages, anything that you can drive traffic to your detail pages with, I think is a great thing to consider. I also suggest to some of my clients that they use blogs and even other social media to build their presence and to create a different sort of presence so that it's not always sell, sell, sell. Like, who are you? What are you? So why are you selling this thing? What is your passion? What are you doing with your own life? And then write about that and write about the things that you care about and how that dovetails with your product offering, and build a more strong following that way too. It's not just always about what the product is, but also who are you? Who's selling the product to them? People like to feel good about what they're buying.
Well, and they also, you have to know your audience. Sorry, Christina, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I actually had a conversation with a client today. It's really helpful what Emily was just saying with when you're trying to build a brand and you're telling your brand story. It's many of the people who come to us for help with developing and building their brand is it's a passion project for them. So people do, I think consumers really connect with people on a level, and when you're telling who you are and why you're doing what you do and why you feel so passionate about this, that's why I think it's so important to actually develop your products, choose products that you are passionate about, so that you can tell a story. It's different if you don't know anything about it and you're like, well, I think it's going to make money, so I'm going to try this. There's a very big difference between that and you being really passionate maybe about roller skating, and you want to create some products that help people become better roller skaters. If you're really passionate about that, people, consumers, customers are going to really connect with you on a deeper level, and they're going to be repeat customers because of that, and customer service.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. And along similar lines, I think it's important, I mentioned this last week, but I think it's important to talk about again, when you are trying to connect with your customer, when you are creating marketing material, be careful that you aren't just marketing to yourself. Don't pick the photo for your page because you think it's cute. Pick it because it actually depicts somebody using a product similar to yours, or you just want to take a look from a wider picture, like who is your customer,
your target audience, who's your market,
what do they want? Yeah, what do they want out of you and out of the product, and show them that. Talk about that. And if you're a 50-year-old man and you're marketing to younger women, that doesn't take you out of things. It just means that maybe you should consult a younger woman. Take a look. Does this marketing material speak to you? Does this make you interested in this product that I'm selling? You don't have to be a user necessarily of your product or anything like that to really believe in what you're selling and care about what you're selling. So I think it's also good to reiterate that you're not marketing to yourself. You're marketing to maybe someone like you, but maybe not someone like you at all. So it's important to know your customer.
They say, I remember somebody using this analogy years ago, but if you're single and you're dating and you're trying to attract women or men, depending who we're referring to, you want to wear, if you're a guy and you're trying to attract women, you want to wear a cologne that they like, not necessarily that you like, right? Mm-hmm. So that same, I think, with what you're trying to get here is know your target audience, know your market, and cater to them. Figure out what's going to speak to them and present that image to people.
Absolutely. And along the same vein, you must care about them too. You know, you must care what they think. You must care if they are happy with it and if they aren't, because the other end of that loop after you've sold them is following up to make sure that they're good and happy and will want to buy more stuff from you. So you also care about what they think.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think those are all extremely important points. And there's a follow-up question that talks about, other than the traffic benefits, do you think that building backlinks to a detail page is a ranking factor with your Amazon product listing? I don't believe that necessarily influences sales rank, but I am not inside Amazon, and I can't speak specifically to the algorithm and how it ranks the products. It's similar to buy box. That algorithm does change, and it's extremely proprietary. It wouldn't shock me if Amazon ranked traffic by source, saying, let's say, for instance, you post your product on Facebook and that starts to go viral for whatever reason, they may see an increase of traffic for your detail page coming from Facebook, and that may rank higher than maybe something coming from Etsy or Google. But I can't speak specifically, and I don't think any of us can, to exactly how that would impact a ranking. Could it? Yes, I think it could, but how that actually breaks down and the science behind it, I'm not sure, but that's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Emily, thank you for your ideas on that. Christina, thank you for the follow-up questions. I think those are all really good and important. These are things people want to know about. So the other thing that we had on our agenda for this evening was talking about one of the services that Cascadia offers, which is daily account monitoring, and what is it and why should you do it? This is, yeah, you're like, we laugh, but it's important to know. So daily account monitoring. I and my team of awesome research associates spend time looking at clients' accounts to see potentially negative trends forming, hopefully as soon as possible, so that I can advise you to say, hey, this is happening and you need to do something about it. And if you don't, here are the consequences, most importantly, because I think that's one of the things that can be really tough for sellers, is they may know there's a problem, but they may not know how to analyze it, and they may not know what the potential fallout from that could be. So my role as kind of your consultant coach is to say, hey, seller, I'm seeing this, and we need to do this to fix it. So a couple examples that I see fairly frequently. A private label seller that maybe has 4 or 5 different products that they are have developed and are featuring on Amazon, and they're selling well, but they're getting returns. And they're doing FBA. So they're out of the loop in what the customer is saying, and Amazon does not provide those comments to you when a buyer does initiate a return through FBA. So what happens there is they think they're selling well, they think everything is going on, that's just awesome, but in the back end there's some complaints happening from buyers that they may not be looking at, and all they can really see if they look at the return reporting is defective, not as described, switcheroo, quality unacceptable. And I highlight those 4 because those are reason codes that Amazon will consider your responsibility, seller, to understand and analyze. And so I spend a lot of time looking at my clients' returns, trying to detect where a pattern might be happening and what could be driving it. So for instance, I had a seller yesterday that I work with regularly who got, I think it was 22 returns on one ASIN that previously had 1 or 2, and some of them were remorse, and some of them were for issues that, were outside the seller's control, but all of a sudden defective. So I go and look, and it's all from one buyer. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's interesting. So I contacted my seller and I said, what happened here? And apparently one buyer ordered a pack basically of 22 units of this particular item, and there were issues. And it appears that they probably were damaged in shipping. It wasn't a situation where the product was bad or the seller put out a bad product. It just, something happened in transit because they went into the fulfillment center fine from my seller's warehouse, but by the time they got the buyer, they were in bad shape. So probably no real consequence to him, but I wanted to deep dive it and make sure that there wasn't an issue with the listing not matching or condition grading not being appropriate or something else that would be a controllable factor that the seller has dominion over, so to speak. And there wasn't any. It was just kind of an outlier. It happens. So that's one thing we look at. Another thing that we monitor are warnings that come in. Sometimes it's hard for sellers to tell if a warning is, I don't want to say serious, but something that they have to jump on immediately or something that they have time to kind of digest and address. Generally speaking, Amazon is not going to send you a warning message that has a time frame on it. Some will, and those are usually around authenticity claims. But by and large, if they send you a warning about a behavior or some other type of item-based problem, they're not saying we need a response immediately or 7 days. They're looking for you to do a root cause analysis, figure out what caused that problem, and how you are going to correct it. So it behooves you to not respond off the cuff with next to no information or denial or anything. You need to actually look at it and see what's going on. So I will counsel my clients on how to do that. And sometimes that's a tricky thing to do. It's a sticky wicket for some sellers, depending on what the issue is. So that's another thing that monitoring can really help you understand why Amazon does what it does and what you need to do to reply. Something else that we talk about sometimes is customer service. And Emily, this dovetails with your area quite a bit, but sometimes we see sellers that are selling well, they're doing a lot of good things, but their customer service may not be up to Amazon bar, I guess I would call it. What are some of the things that you do to help our clients in those situations?
I write a lot of content for people.
Yeah, you do.
It surprises me how many people don't know how to talk to their customers. And so I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that there are companies like ours to help people, because in my general experience, sellers are not bad people. They don't not care about their customers. It's nothing like that. They just simply don't know how to talk to them. So I teach them, or I write for them actually often, and just say, I'll take care of this for you. Here's the main points I'm going to address. I'm going to talk about taking responsibility for what happened. I'm going to offer a resolution that is to their satisfaction. I'm going to thank them for their business and let them know I appreciate them. Those are really the only things that you need to do, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. And then you need to actually even catch the problem to begin with. And so that's another angle that's important for some people. They don't even realize what these returns mean, as you point out. They're not really on a seller's radar. They don't work for Amazon. The Amazon speak doesn't make sense to them.
Right.
And so it's also important to even let them know how important it is, and how, like you are being graded on customer service. Amazon started out to be the most customer-centric company on earth. That was the plan. That was the goal. Customer-centric is not a word, but they made it a word. And so you have to be that customer-centric too. And so, yeah, I do spend a lot of time kind of trying to help people understand the importance of that other side of things. Like, you have to be ready when something's going wrong. You have to, it's not that things are never expected to go wrong. It's just that you need to know what you're going to do if and when they do.
Right.
And be willing to actually sometimes go overboard. I think with the, we have a good handful of clients who are, in my opinion, really good sellers when it comes to customer service. They bend over backward. And I think for somebody who doesn't understand, to look at that and be like, wow, that was a really inexpensive item, and they refunded them and they sent them a new one free of charge. And then you look, and those people are the ones that are returning, buying more stuff. That's huge. As a consumer, that would be important to me. Customer service is A1 to me. That's really important. When I go somewhere, I want to know that I'm going to be treated right. I will pay more as a consumer for a better experience, simply to not have to deal with really crappy customer service. So being willing to, I know a lot of times sellers that's what they do all day long. That's their life's blood. And they get so caught up in, well, he was lying, or that wasn't messed up, or that wasn't my fault. Well, I think ultimately Amazon, those type things, Amazon considers that to be fixable by the seller, right? So you have to be willing to give a little. And I think that doing it right, you get more back. Honestly, you get more, because those people are returning. They remember, hey, that guy sold me a trinket that was 50 cents and no big deal, but then he sent me one for free because I received it broken, and I'm going to go back to him every single time for everything that I need that he sells, because they had a really good experience. And so I think keeping an open mind and not always just assuming that everybody's out to get you, and there are there are crappy customers out there. The customer isn't always right, but I think having an open mind about that and being willing to give a little, you get more in return.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's one of those things I spend some time trying to get sellers to think about, because they have to put themselves in the buyer's shoes sometimes to really empathize with where something comes from.
Yeah. One of my favorite customer service stories actually is from when I worked at Amazon, and I used to be in the product safety department, and I used to have to investigate product safety claims when there was an injury or a problem of some sort. And I had this one investigation where I can't remember what the product was, but the woman claimed that it killed her cat. And there was no way that I could prove that it did or did not. Her case was good, but the product was not. It didn't make sense to me, and I couldn't prove that it was the product. And so I kind of closed the investigation because I had done my due diligence in protecting Amazon's liability, and that was pretty much all I could do. But I sent a message to the escalations team. There's a higher customer service escalations team for the really sticky, ugly ones. And I just said, hey, I just feel really terrible for this lady. I don't even know what to do. I can't prove that this thing did anything to her cat. I really don't think that it did. And so anyway, fast forward like a couple of days later, I get this note indicating that they had sent flowers to her. They sent flowers to her, and she was super happy. She wrote back. She was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then she was like, maybe the product didn't kill it, but it was so disarming for her. And then the sort of the after effects of that were, I'm on cloud nine, super happy with my company. I posted on Facebook. It gets more likes than any other thing I've ever posted on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, I heart Amazon, blah. And everybody had wonderful things to say about Amazon on that particular day, on that particular Facebook thread. And so that really, it did get, I think, over 100 likes. A lot of people saw that post, and that was just free advertising for Amazon. Mm-hmm. And that started out as a very contentious situation where a product that had been sold on their site potentially killed someone's pet. And it ended up being this big love fest at the end. So
right. It's 10% action, 90% reaction, right? We have the ability to choose whether we're going to be angry and lash out at people, or if we're going to be kind, and that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Sellers have to remember that they are the beneficiary of Amazon's really, really, really massive and devoted buyer fan base.
Yep.
And if they are not treating buyers the way that Amazon treats them, which by and large is good, they're going to not get repeat sales. They're going to have more problems. They're going to have more customer service issues than they would otherwise. And so some of what I think we all do at Cascadia is really trying to instill those thoughts about how to treat buyer issues in such a way that they're kind of acting very much as a proxy for Amazon, which is what Amazon wants. And if you do that, you get two really big positive benefits: more sales, fewer enforcement issues.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I cannot stress enough how proactive customer service can halt an issue that would escalate and potentially cause you a claim or, heaven forbid, a chargeback, because those are two of the worst possible metrics that you can get. So it's a really frustrating dynamic sometimes for sellers, but it's important to realize that that's how Amazon wants you to behave as a seller. So there's a follow-up question about contacting Amazon, and it says, I repeatedly contacted Amazon about removing what I feel is a malicious review to no avail. Do you have any suggestions? Would this be by the higher escalation team? So here's the thing. With both seller feedback and product reviews, you can bring whatever information you want to the table. You can bring what you think is proof. You can bring a logical argument. You can bring both. You can, go for the emotion, whatever it is that you think you need to do. But ultimately, if Amazon decides that they're not going to remove that review, positive product review or seller review, they're not going to do it. And so the team that Emily's talking about is customer service focused, so they wouldn't be the target for that. One thing you always have in your back pocket as a seller is that if you feel like you have been absolutely unjustly treated, you can write to Jeff Bezos. Now, depending on what the nature of the issue is, a different team is going to answer different types of inquiries. So for product reviews, that's going to go to a different team than, say, a malicious buyer that might be impacting you, or a suspected malicious buyer, or if you're having an issue with another seller, or if you're having an issue with seller performance or product quality or restricted products. So they're all going to go to different teams. And so depending on what you say and how you phrase it, Jeff's office will then negotiate that contact to the appropriate team for review. But it doesn't mean that you're going to have a higher likelihood of removal or fixing or resolution to your issue. It just means that somebody else is going to review it. It is a very tall bar to prove on Amazon that an action on your account was malicious by another user, whether you're talking about product reviews or seller reviews. And if you've had no success getting it removed, I do recommend escalating it. You can also trying to escalate that through seller support to a manager. But again, think very long and hard about that, because if it's in the scheme of things, if you're performing very, very well, and this one review or seller review has not completely tanked you, do you want to spend the time and energy going after that one thing that you think is malicious, but you can't prove it necessarily? And I understand the frustration that happens for sellers when they get dinged with something, especially if it is patently unfair. It's going to happen. That is the price of admission on this website. You have to be prepared to be dinged for the wrong thing by the wrong person occasionally. You got to pull up the bootstraps and move on, as hard as it sometimes is. Knowing when to fight those things is a tough battle, but ask yourself, how much time do you want to sink into it, and how many people do you want to bug? Because one thing Amazon does not tolerate well is what they consider harassment. If you send 65 emails to one team trying to correct an issue, they're going to take action against you, and it's not going to be pleasant. So think about that before you get too invested in trying to get justice for what you see as a wrong.
Kelly, I was actually going to ask you to touch on that. That's a really big, I think you and I just talked about this yesterday. We're getting there's a lot of seller enforcement. There's a lot of action, Amazon enforcement action against sellers, with seller performance issues recently. And many of the clients coming to us, sellers coming to us, are saying, I reached out to this person, and then I went on LinkedIn and I found this email address, and I found this one, and I found this one, and I read an article and I saw an Amazon email address there. And I mean, this just happened yesterday, where we found out that this person had emailed basically everybody except God about this really probably a minor issue in the bigger scheme of things, and they've been blocked. Amazon's not responding to them anymore. Can you touch on that? Because I really feel like I know that sellers want to be heard, but there's a way to go about it. And unfortunately, by the time they come to us and want our expert help, which we would be more than happy to provide, it really limits our ability to actually help them, because they've basically burned every bridge by the time they've come to us. It went down in a blaze of glory,
You're totally right. And this brings up that post I did several months ago about what not to do. Mm-hmm. Look, if you're writing a plan of action, Amazon expects you to provide three things: accountability, corrections, and solutions. And solutions being preventative in nature, corrections being reactive, and accountability just being owning what has happened. It is no different than when you are trying to escalate an issue. I'm not saying that you shouldn't tell somebody how upset you are and what the impacts are, but you have to approach it in a factual way. And using a scattershot approach is not going to be successful. You have to know who you're dealing with. So if you're not sure if it's seller performance, restricted products, product quality, on and on and on, you are wasting your time and that of people who may be able to potentially help you if you are just emailing everybody. And it also makes you look desperate, which you may be, and fairly so, but you have to maintain control of the narrative and don't give yourself this appearance of being the crazy person on the outside who's just clamoring for attention, the stalker who won't go away. You have to You have to think logically and dispassionately about this. The example that you used is very true. I have dealt with a number of people who have burned pretty much every bridge they could possibly have at Amazon trying to resolve a problem because they couldn't figure out when to backpedal. Mm-hmm. Now, Amazon does have a problem with the seller being heard. I'll be the first advocate to say that they could do better. But there are ways to get what you want. And for instance, I had an issue with AT&T. In 2009. It's been a long time. And I very rarely escalate matters if I don't have to, because I usually feel like I can get what I need through regular channels. But this was a situation where I simply could not get anybody to listen to me. And I was able to procure a senior vice president type email, and I wrote to them. And I said, look, I've been a customer for this long. I have spent X amount with you. I am simply asking for this, and I'm getting no explanation as to why I'm being denied this service request. And, here are the situations that are driving me asking for this now. And I got an instantaneous response that I'm looking into this. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Now, conversely, had I gone at that like, you suck and you're tearing my life apart and everything is so horrible and it's all your fault, I probably wouldn't have gotten that same response. And I see that a lot with sellers. And granted, they're being driven to this level of frustration in some ways by Amazon's really clunky processes, lack of transparency. But at the end of the day, you control your response. And if you are not approaching this from, again, factual and dispassionate, you're going to end up with problems.
Well, and I think maybe something to also speak on, and you can speak on it better than I could, Kelly, is every response that every interaction that you have with Amazon becomes a part of their permanent record on the back end, right? So even if they successfully, after 11 emails back and forth, freaking out, get a resolution that they are happy with, if something comes down the pike later on down the road and Amazon is looking to take enforcement action at that time, they look at all of those things, right? So these could come back to bite you in the butt at a later date. You just have to be really careful what you're saying and how those are human people on the other end of, we get that a lot. Well, I just got a canned response. There are blurbs, yes. So Amazon has blurbs so that there's consistency across the board as best they can, but there are human people reading what you're sending to them. And
I can't stress enough how highly I hold my former colleagues in esteem. I worked with some of the most amazingly smart and dedicated people who are doing these frontline investigations, and they are impacted by harsh and frustrated emails. I can assure you that day in and day out, they are impacted by that. That said, you're right. They do track all of this. Everything that you do is 100% on record. They have to. There's the Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires it. So anything that you are doing is going to be notated. And no matter what happens, if you lose the narrative of sticking to the facts and putting things in order and keeping them clear, you are running the risk of not getting the resolution that you want and maybe engendering some worse consequences than you intended. It's very easy for that to happen. They're human. They make mistakes. Things go wrong. I've talked to people who have been they've been victimized by what I would call a just horrific series of almost misunderstandings and technical issues and misunderstandings and more misunderstandings and just lack of clarity. And it can result in loss of an account and money and time and all sorts of things. And it's really bad. So yes, I recommend that you try to rein in the frustration that you feel, no matter how justified it is, and stick to what is actually happening. That will get you a lot further than ranting. Not that ranting isn't necessarily warranted or deserved, but it really doesn't help clarify the situation.
Right. Well, I think what would be helpful on that, maybe closing up the subject, is knowing the actual root cause. So a lot of times in my position with Cascadia, I'm doing intake, I'm fielding biz dev calls and people saying, I've checked everything, my performance metrics are perfect, 100% across the board, and there's still this, that, and the other, and they need more information, and they blocked me, and God knows what else we hear on any given day. I think that you have, well, I know for a fact that there is a root cause. Every now and then, like Kelly said, there's, they make mistakes, they're human, but generally if there is an enforcement action taken against you as a seller, there is a cause. And being able to find that cause, there are some sellers who are more proficient at finding the causes, and there are others who are maybe newer or don't fully comprehend Amazon's processes or how to read the reports that we read with the account monitoring that we do and the deep dives in the account reviews. That's why you find a professional, find an expert. All of our consultants are former Amazonians. They managed the teams at Amazon that in the fields that they, or the subjects that they cover and consulted with Cascadia. So finding someone who actually speaks Amazon, they know that Amazon speak, they know what Amazon is saying by Amazon not actually saying it, being able to read between the lines. Sometimes you need help. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here is part of our account monitoring process, kind of segueing into how everything you say, everything you do becomes a permanent part of your record, finding the actual root cause, and working to admit, okay, maybe I screwed up, and this is what I've done to fix the problem, and here's how I'm going to prevent it in the future. That's huge. You have to be able to. You need help sometimes. Be willing to reach out, ask a question. Don't just assume.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the number one part of my job. Really, is telling people how to do that. And I always remind sellers that are frustrated with the appeals process that they're not born knowing how to do these responses. And so they shouldn't hold themselves to this ridiculous standard of, I should know how to do this, I should be able to fix this myself. There's no shame in asking for someone like me or Emily or anybody else in Cascadia to help you with this kind of thing. But particularly when it comes to dealing with an enforcement action, you do have to know what the root cause is. And sometimes it's not obvious, and sometimes it does take a bit of digging to figure out what it is. But if you don't do that, two things are going to happen. One, your request is going to be denied. Either you won't get the ASIN back or you won't get your account back, even worse. But two, you won't understand what actually drove this to happen and how you can stop it from happening again. If you don't know why your product is getting a bunch of defective returns or why you're getting negative product reviews for skin breakouts or makes people nauseous or whatever, you are missing an opportunity, A, to improve your product, but you're also missing an opportunity to prevent more intensive enforcement. One of the things that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of in 2017 is the expansion of the safety incident program that started in May. Sellers are being asked to justify a lot with these, particularly anything in the ingestible categories, so health and beauty, grocery, health and health personal care, all of that stuff. There is a lot more happening there, and if you can't tell Amazon that your product is safe and what could have driven a problem with that, you're going to have some issues. And so the sooner you can learn to do that root cause analysis, the better off that you'll be. One of the things that Amazon also does internally is that they use SMART goals. And if you're not familiar with SMART goals, Google that, because if you follow that ethos of each of those letters and what they represent, you are going to get a lot farther than if you don't. And that's something else we can talk about another time. But look up SMART goals, and I can tell you lots and lots of ways to apply those to how to deal with Amazon. It would really help.
Awesome. We probably beat that into the ground, didn't we, that subject?
We did, but you know what? It's worth it, because sellers, I'm talking to you all out there, and I know that some of you do not want to have this come to Jesus talk, but I'm going to have it with you right now whether you want it or not. It is Q4. Amazon is paying extraordinary attention to what you're doing. And even if they don't necessarily do something to ping you about your late shipment rate or this, that, or the other right now, if you continue to struggle through this period of time into Q1 of next year, they are going to come find you. So honestly, truly, take the short-term pain, put yourself on vacation if you're having issues, particularly around cancellations or fulfillment right now, because those are the number one drivers of buyer dissatisfaction during Q4. Take yourself offline. I know you're going to lose sales. I know that's painful, but is it more painful to take yourself offline to get caught up and fix whatever's driving cancellations? Or is it more painful to lose your source of income? Because really,
right,
That's not a choice in my mind. If you are willing to risk your account for the sake of short-term gain, you are on the wrong platform. I'm going to say it outright. You are not going to be a fit for Amazon long-term, and you're going to get yourself shot in the foot. So it's kind of the whole, what's that saying? Drink the Kool-Aid. You may not want to drink that orange Kool-Aid, but you need to drink it if you want to be good. And I'm telling you, straight from the heart and from all the years of experience I spent inside the machine, they're looking. So don't think that you're safe. You know, keep your eye on the ball, eyes on the prize.
Be proactive.
Yes, be proactive. The number one thing I can say that I really don't think Amazon does a great job of saying to sellers, implicitly or explicitly, is we expect you to be proactive about this.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't see Amazon modeling that behavior, I can kind of understand why. But still, you sellers, all of you out there, be proactive. Take yourself offline. Take that ASIN offline. Delete that listing. If there's a problem, it is far better for you to lose some sales than it is to lose access to a top-selling ASIN, especially if it's your private label brand, because you didn't take action fast enough. Don't wait.
Agree.
Amen.
Yeah. Church is closed. All right, you guys. I think we have exhausted many, many wonderful subjects, but quick recap. We talked about detail pages and EMC and how all that impacts you and how to drive some traffic and how that might actually help your sales rank or not at all. We talked about account monitoring and why it may be important for you. If you are a busy business owner and you need help managing your performance on Amazon, come talk to me because I can help you. We also talked about the best approaches for Amazon: dispassionate, factual, straightforward, and root cause analysis. That should be your new best friend in 2017. Because if it is, it will save you a lot of pain and angst. It's Q4, you guys. Keep rocking it. Keep working on it. Do all the things you need to do. But stay vigilant and stay on top of everything.
And we're here for you if you need us.
Abso-freaking-lutely we are. All right, you guys. Thank you so much, Emily, Christina, for joining us. And we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.